hello everybody. Sorry we've been a little bit late starting, but I think everything's been overrunning over in the main hall this morning. So welcome to this exclusive coffee house session with Nicholas Hoult, a British actor known for About a Boy, Skins and X-Men. Taron Egerton, a Welsh actor known for Kingsman and my personal favourite, Eddie the Eagle. And Gina Torres and Sarah Rafferty, who we're all currently watching in Suits. So thank you so much, all four of you. Thank you, all four of you, to be here today to talk about your lives, your views on what the world is like for young people today, and how we can prepare all of us, and them particularly, for the future. So, Nick, I think you were only 5 years old when you made your screen debut with Julie Waters in Intimate Relations, and then you shot to stardom as Marcus in About a Boy. I think you were still only 12 then?
Yeah, 11 when we shot
11,
that movie,
right.
yeah.
So is it hard for young people to combine kind of that living in the spotlight with growing up at the same time?
I don't know, I was fairly fortunate with it, whereby in my head I kind of split it into two separate worlds. I kind of imagined it as my alter ego and my real life. So school was the real world, and then I'd go off, kind of like being some superhero or something, go shoot a movie or whatever it was, and then go back to school. And it was weird because you'd have a very adult side of life where you'd turn up to work, not like with your little briefcase and everything, and then you go back to school and run around in the playground and play it and all that sort of stuff. And it was kind of, they were kind of both nice therapies to the other one. Although whilst I was at work, you'd have tutors and everything.
Yeah, so your education, you don't think your education doesn't suffer?
Well, I don't think it suffered. It was very, because then you have this very one-on-one tutoring, and you have to do a certain amount of hours each day. But also you're getting great life experience in terms of the places you go to, the people you meet. And also, I'm sure we all understand, in terms of acting, the great thing about it is each person you play or world you enter, you get to learn a lot about those people and circumstances and history or whatever it might be. So that's what's brilliant about the job to me. Yeah.
So Taron, would you encourage young people to become actors?
I think I was incredibly fortunate in that my parents were very, very supportive of my kind of chosen career path, which I came to comparatively late. I was about 17, I think, when I decided I wanted to be an actor. And I mean, I don't know if I'd encourage kids to become an actor. What I would encourage kids to do is to pursue exactly what they want to do. I think kind of nurturing and harnessing and channeling creativity can only lead to good things. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important that the kind of the spark you see in children and the things that they come to themselves be nurtured. That's what I would want for my children anyway.
Sure. So, Twitter, social media, young people are growing up in a social media world now. Now, Gina, I noticed you're not, I don't think, on Twitter, and Sarah, you are. So how did you make those decisions, and what do you think it's like for young people growing up in this kind of social media world we're all living in?
I'll do A, you do B. Okay, I don't know which is which, but A meaning I made a choice to not participate in any social media whatsoever as an actor. And it's so interesting now because we are in such an age of celebrity, and people are so hungry for more information, and the more they get, the more they want. Mm-hmm. And when I was becoming an actor, it was essential that we maintain a kind of mystique about ourselves, so that when you actually saw us on stage or on screen inhabiting a character, you didn't have the baggage of who we were to sort of fall back on and say, oh, she's doing this, or she's doing her, or this is directly related to when, her dog got hit by a car. That was not part of anything that was anyone's business. Mm-hmm. And so you could suspend your disbelief wholeheartedly as an audience member. That seems to have gone by the wayside. It's not something I'm particularly interested in participating in. I have a feeling I'll get dragged in by the feet, kicking and screaming at some point, but until then,
You're protecting your characters.
I am protecting my characters, absolutely, and I'm protecting myself. I'm protecting my world, my family. They didn't ask to be in the circus. I did.
But Sarah, you obviously have made the choice to show yourself. So that's the other side of that coin.
Yeah, I don't think, this is on? This is on. I think, one of the things that I've spent some time thinking about as a parent, not just as an actor, but I have 2 little girls, they're 10 and 6, and they're both members of this iGen, the first generation that has forever had screens. And they're growing up, there are a lot of their peers that are growing up behind these screens. And so I guess my biggest concern with the social media and having girls is the effects that it has on their self-esteem, the different kinds of problems that come with it. But I'm concerned about the connectivity of that generation, of building empathy, of the bullying that occurs, this anonymous bullying that can occur. But there's also this tremendous plus side that we're seeing now with the students out of Parkland and their activism, and they are connected, and they're connected to the world, and they have these platforms, they know how to use it for change. So there's this good and bad. It's really interesting, but I'll be listening to the experts about how to manage it moving forward.
They say, I think that the internet's a fantastic source of information, but unfortunately misinformation too. So Nick, on your Twitter account, you don't refer to your acting fame, but describe yourself as Berkshire County Athletics 2005 discus bronze medalist.
It's true. It's true. Thank you. Yeah, it was more by default that I won that medal, though.
I was going to say, is that still your proudest
there were people
achievement?
there who were much better at discus, but they would walk out the front of the circle because they were so unhappy with their throws that they weren't breaking records. So I didn't even do the spinny thing. When you meant to spin with the discus? I didn't even do that. I just stood there, threw it, and I got a bronze medal for it. So that's my main thing I'm bringing to this talk is do your own thing. Don't worry what everyone else is doing. Make sure you stick to the rules at certain points when it suits you, and you could win a bronze medal at county discus.
So clearly still your proudest achievement.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Taron, social media, as we were just talking about, has transformed the celebrity-fan relationship. So what's this like for you, and have you had experience of trolling and things like that?
So I do have social media, but what I kind of limit my tweeting to things that are related to work, so promotional things, and things like I'll occasionally do something personal where it's myself and a friend, but it's largely I like to tweet things that I like and keep it very positive. And generally, I try and avoid the responses because although by and large they're very nice, I think that there is something quite ugly that can happen to people behind a computer screen. So generally, I try and limit myself in terms of that kind of engagement with it. But I also think connectivity can be a kind of quite an amazing thing. I, prior to coming this weekend, spoke to one of my best friends who's a deputy head teacher in Manchester and was asking him about education and how things are changing and trying to focus on the positives. And he was talking about how now schools have started blogging their work. And so now when a child writes a piece for a part of their course, they, after a kind of a filtration system where it kind of goes through a certain thing, they put the kids' writing online, and so people from other schools and people all around the world can review their work, and then you're not just writing for one set of eyes. And I think that kind of connectivity from such a young age is quite exciting, and I think we'll see a lot of very rapid development in the years that come. So I think although there's a lot that's kind of quite scary about social media, and it's this huge tool that we don't really understand, and in my opinion definitely don't have kind of the right laws around, making it safe, there is a lot to be really excited about.
So, on that point then, I was listening to a session earlier and they were talking about the mobile phone disappearing in about 5 to 10 years' time, which I can't quite see, but
Really?
Apparently. I don't know what's replacing it. So how do you think social media will be in the year 2030? What's your vision for it? What do you think it will be like?
I think it'll be dominated by Gina Torres.
Clearly. You know, in hearing all of this discussion, and certainly what you were just touched upon, it seems that for the last 30 years, we've been so behind in terms of what our responsibility and our actual understanding of how far technology has progressed. It's at least 5 years ahead of what we could all catch up on. I mean, you know, our phones are changing every 9 months. So now you're telling me that we're not going to have one in 5 years? It's just a little astonishing.
Yeah.
We have to figure out how to not just catch up, but be in real time with technology, so that our children don't suffer the consequences of what's happening. Like all of this bullying, like having sort of restrictions, and okay, this is happening now. What are the immediate implications of having that much access, and who has it? Yeah. And as parents, it's ever changing, and trying to keep up with all of that. And I think that's where educating ourselves and making sure that the people that are behind all of this progress are aware of their responsibilities, because it's a tremendous responsibility to impart all of this and to unleash it, quite frankly, on to the world.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about gender. It's been a lot in the news, and Sarah, I know gender equality is a subject you've been very vocal about. As you've just mentioned, you have 2 young daughters. So do you think that today's young people have a better chance of growing up in a more equal world than perhaps previous generations?
I definitely do. I think the conversation, even just this year alone, has shifted for girls and women and for empowering them. And, you know, I was lucky enough to travel with Plan Canada last year to see the work that they're doing in Ghana with girls and see the gender transformative programs in action and watch as they work to not just change the conditions of girls in the developing world, but the position of girls. And I listened to the girls that are 5 years into some of the teaching that they're receiving, and to hear them talk about their dreams and what they're going to accomplish and the world they look forward to is really amazing.
Yeah. So Gina, what impact has issues such as Harvey Weinstein had on you and the kind of Hollywood and television industry and the whole Me Too?
Hashtag time's up.
Hashtag
Time is up. It's so important, and to not be afraid anymore. I mean, so these men got away with what they got away with because they used fear as a tool. As all predators do, they use fear to manipulate, to oppress, and we cannot praise and give enough respect to the women that have come forward and have brought them out of the darkness. And so I think we need to continue to support these women and to not let it slide.
Yeah.
Just if you see something, whether it's happening to you or you see it happening to somebody else, say something. Go to somebody, call them out while it's happening, and do not allow fear. Do not make decisions based on fear. Do not make decisions based on your past or what you think might happen, because it is a different time.
Sarah, you just said that things have kind of changed very quickly, very recently. So given that 2030 is 13 years away, how do you think Hollywood will be in 2030 compared to now?
I think we're going to see a lot more women directing, a lot more women producing. You know, we're going to see more representation, and I think that's incredibly exciting.
More diversity across the board.
Which is 12 years away, isn't it? I can't even do maths.
Interestingly, a lot of the jobs in Hollywood were women did take at the beginning of Hollywood, because they began in editing and script writing and directing, and a lot of the jobs were held by women. And then when the Wall Street crash happened back in the 20s or 30s, a lot of the men left banking and went over there and kind of overtook it and turned it into their money profiting side of things. But it was actually a more women-led industry at first, so it's nice to see it returning to that.
Okay. So, guys, what do you think are the main challenges for young people growing up in today's world?
I mean, it's a kind of very big and quite broad question, if I may say. But I mean, I guess, speaking in a broad global sense, I think, we are living in a kind of crazy time where, thankfully, ideas and the right kind of change seems to be happening at an astonishing rate, but also the world around us is changing in ways that are kind of, well, frankly, quite terrifying, I think. So I guess, for my part, I think teaching children tolerance and kind of progressive attitudes in all senses, whether it be, things like, sexuality or, encouraging diversity in all industries like our own. It's about teaching kids adaptability, really. I mean, how you do that, I really don't know. I'm sure there are some people in the room who've got some ideas, but I'm not an educator, but I know that what I would want for my children, I have two young sisters who are 5 and 7, and I want them to be understanding, balanced, thoughtful, kind people who can kind of handle some of the crazy things that we're going to see happen over the next few decades.
Yeah, I agree. I think kind is a big little word, isn't it?
Mm. I would say that imagination is one of the key things that a lot of the time, even for myself, with the constant input that you're getting nowadays and the constant output, you kind of lose that time just to sit and daydream. And that's when some of the most creative people and brilliant minds in our world have come up with their greatest inventions. So I think, for me it would be, obviously children are very adaptable and they will grow up and they will be more tech savvy than any of us will ever be probably and develop with that naturally. But trying to create, at least for my kids, trying to create a world where they still can be part of the environment and understand that and the world around them and have time to be kids and not grow up too fast because of the world around them being constantly in the palm of their hand or in their eyeball or ear, wherever it's going to be in the next 5 years.
Okay, great. So just going down the line then quickly before we open up to questions for the audience and start thinking of some. Are you optimistic or pessimistic for the future for children?
Oh, I'm always optimistic. Absolutely. I think every generation fears what their legacy is and what they're leaving to their children to either clean up or deal with or overcome. But that is the world that we live in. That is sort of the cycle of life in a way. And so we give our children something and they are growing up in their world. They are absolutely on time and growing up in the place where they need to be with the outlook that they have. Just like I can't make my phone work, my daughter can. And so that alone gives me hope that they are and she is and they're fine. Mm-hmm. They'll be okay and they'll figure it out because they're growing up in this generation, in this world. And so who else but they?
Same, optimistic or pessimistic?
I'm optimistic and mildly terrified at the same time. I mean, look, the world is profoundly changing moment to moment, and we need to outfit our kids. You guys have already touched on this, but they need to be ready for professions that we don't even know exist yet. Mm-hmm. So preparing them for that, it's giving them this imagination, this creativity, this ability to collaborate, some compassion. We should model for them some diplomatic discourse. I think the U.S. could do better in that department right now. And also, I think we have to also realize that we're global citizens and that there's, 130 million girls who are out of school. So, we've got to make, by 2030, it's our job to make education accessible for everybody on the planet.
Okay. talking of them, I was just over at the main hall, and there were 3 of the students from the Parkland, Florida shooting talking. And they said, you know, things are going to change, but things are going to change slowly. This is a lifetime mission for us, and we're younger than the government. Which I thought was a great line in terms of hope.
Yeah.
Positive or optimistic or pessimistic?
Very pessimistic.
Oh, really?
No, I'm joking. Of course, positive, and positive, of course, because I think ultimately, when you look at human history, you know, we're fairly new to the planet and the solar system and everything, and you know, we're still developing and figuring things out, and there's been massive mistakes, but I think at the moment everyone's having the right conversations and we're progressing in the right way. So it's very difficult when you say, you know, 10, 15 years, because technology is moving so rapidly, but hopefully it can all be put into positive for kids, whereby the education, as you say, is improved, whereby whether it's through VR and there's virtual classrooms where all over the world kids can be in a classroom with a great teacher who inspires them, or whatever it is. I think if it's used in the right ways, then I think it can be very positive. So I'm feeling positive about it.
And we got a full house on optimistic?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, pessimism doesn't get anyone anywhere. I think, you know, there are facts and figures about climate change which are sobering, to say the least. And, you know, as you say, there are 3 children who are having to campaign to stop another event like that happening by trying to change gun laws. There are things happening in the world which, you know, feel like they're from a dystopian novel. But, however, I do fundamentally believe in human goodness, and I think we are generally moving forward in our ideas and our thinking, and I really believe that, you know, the next generation of people will be better than the generations that have come before.
I always say that children are 27% of the world's people, but 100% of the future. So we hold on to that thought. Any questions, anybody? Over there? The guy with the glasses on your head?
So, sorry, Taron, Nicholas, Gina, Sarah, thank you for sharing the wisdom. I'm an aviation leader at one of the international schools just up the road. One of the things that, as teachers, we struggle with is when the students suffer from things on social media and they start to go and see this darker place. It's quite difficult for teachers to try and bring them back up. So I was wondering if you could share some of your wisdom on when you guys start to feel that everything's against you, what do you do to keep yourself going? What do you do to get yourselves to go beyond?
I mean, you know, there is something I'm not entirely comfortable with a teacher asking me advice about how to deal with everything. But I guess, you know, I think that world, the world of social media can, I think I said it earlier, for me it can be a kind of, you get a kind of, like a sort of, a weird version of people, you know, it's a filter through which people can kind of be the worst version of themselves, I think. So, I mean, in terms of how you make children understand that, I guess it's about, for me, so thinking about my eldest of my 2 little sisters, who's 7, I would probably think about trying to deconstruct that, I guess, in a way that would make them understand that negative energy which might come their way is actually from somebody who's quite probably in a lot of pain themselves, and is kind of lashing out at just anything really. In terms of what I do when I feel quite negative, I don't know really. I've definitely got sort of mantras, and I've got fantastic people around me, and I had fantastic teachers. You know, I know that there have been times in my life, in the first part of my life when I was at school, where you know, I can think of 1 or 2 teachers. I suffered with bullying quite badly in my first year at secondary school, and it was after that it was totally fine, but it really was. It was awful, actually. It was not physical, but I was really terrified, didn't want to go to school. And I remember one teacher in particular kind of feeling like a superhero, like really like a superhero. So I guess just the way you asked that question and the type of man it seems you are, I don't think your pupils have got anything to worry about.
Am I allowed to ask any more questions? Because I know we're out of time. Looking for somebody? Oh my goodness. We'll just take, I think, one more because unfortunately we're out of time.
Hello. My name is Daquan. I'm from Chicago, the U.S. And right now I'm a student in college studying political science and French. And over the last year, though, I've taught English in Senegal, where my family's from, and also in Chicago. And the biggest similarity is that I've taught in schools that has amazing access to like technology and quality education. But in both countries, I've also taught in schools that have terrible access or no access to technology and to quality education. And so I can get into what I plan to do to help, but my question is to you all, what do you think is probably the best way that as individuals we can bridge that gap between accessibility to things that make education more quality and better for students overall?
Well, I think we're doing that here, right, at this entire conference. Shining a light on that issue, like you are right now, is the beginning of that conversation. And to understand that it's, we don't have borders anymore. We're in a global community, and that it is important for all of us to take responsibility for that. But I pass it on to the rest of the group.
Sometimes I feel the answer to high tech is low tech, and I think that goes as well to the bullying and when you get into a dark place, you go to what is closest to you. You go to the person that you trust. You open up a forum. We communicate. This is all human beings, individuals in a room using their voices and connecting in a real way without our phones, without our computers. And this is the answer. Looking somebody in the eye, trying to figure out what their problem is. What the real truth of your students is, going back and saying, you know what your truth is, and stay in your truth. What are your dreams? What are the truth about your dreams? What is important? And you connect globally in that way, slowly but surely. If technology can't catch up with what's going on in your heart, then we're lost. So we have to reconnect. We have to reconnect our hearts.
Unfortunately, we have to end it. We've been really fortunate to spend time with all four of you today. So please join me in thanking Taron, Nicholas, Sarah, and Gina.
Thank you.